Hello D&Ders, RPGers, Game Masters and such. Today I'm going to talk about White Lies, which is a white box version of a spy game. All right, and I've actually played this a couple times with my family, and it's really fun and really enjoyable. So a little backstory here. I was looking into finding a spy kind of, I don't know, X-Files kind of game. There's something out there called X Factor and stuff, and I didn't really care for the mechanics. I think it was a 1d10 thing. And then I was also looking at Delta Green and Call of Cthulhu. And so what the focus was, my daughter Roz is really into X-Files. So is my wife. And they like to watch them all the time. And I said, well, I'd like to find a game where we can kind of do X-Files stuff. So searching the web, I found White Lies. And you can get a drive-through RPG. And you can pay what you will. I think that's what it was. And they got a bunch of PDFs to download. And it's written by Bill Logan. It's awesome. It's so much fun. And I'm going to show you in this video, I'm going to go kind of through the book. And I'm going to have a separate video that kind of talks about all the stuff on my webpage. But the link for my webpage is down in the description. So you want to get in there and click on it, and you can access a lot of stuff. And I started making these little modules you can kind of go through with your group, your cell, if you want, which will make it kind of fun. All right. So let me just go through the book underneath the PDF thing, and I kind of went through with the kids. In a matter of like 20 minutes, they understood how to play the game, right? So I'm going to kind of scroll through and kind of show you what the book has to offer. First of all, the artwork's so cool. It's just red, white, and black. For a colorblind guy, it works so well for me, all right? So first of all, Bill Logan, he did everything in here. He did all the illustrations, and he, of course, he wrote the whole thing based on source of White Box by Matt Finch, written and illustrated by Bill Logan, okay? And obviously the name giver, Spawn. So James Spawn, Barrel Rider Games, he contributed a bunch to White Box, like extra classes, and he also wrote White Star, another of my favorite games. So you can see where this is going, right? So first off, it kind of lets you know kind of how to play the game. Let's say if you just pick the book up and you've never, ever, ever played any game involving a role-playing game, it gives you enough of a background that you can figure out how to do this. But if you're watching this video, you pretty much know how to play these kind of games, right? So it gives you the modern take on RPG. All right, it talks about the rules and the dice, and really you only need two dice, a D6 and a D20, to do all your faithful work, right? It goes through your 6 different attributes, talks about what they are, and talks about little actions, things that you can do, right? It talks about it does a D6 for all your skills / action checks, right? I did not use that method. I use a 2d6 method. I like it better. The kids like it better. But it would totally work. All right. Depends on what you want to do. Right. So the reason why I do 2d6 is it gives me the 5 different changes. And we'll look at it in the next video on what it looks like, what I do. Right. So we're just sticking to the book for this one. Right. So it talks about how to create your characters. Right. And one of them is 3d6 straight down. That's what they say. I let them move their stats, and I let them move points because I'm playing with my kids. I want them to really enjoy the game, and nobody wants a dog walking into this thing. Although it's a lot of fun, they wouldn't find it fun. I do like the spread on the points. So let's take a look at this. If you have a 17 or 18, which is actually really, really hard to roll on a 3d6, you get a +2, all right? I like that. And the 14 through 16 is a +1, 0s 8 to 13, -1 and a -2. Now, the rules are you can move points like in my game, except you can't make anything negative. So they have to stop at 8. They can't make somebody a -2. They can't drop it down to nothing. That's just kind of what I did. And it seems to work for my campaigns, right? It talks about what you get: semi-automatic pistol, spare ammo, operative kit, and other equipment. And then it gives you some money. So I was kind of loose with this thing. I have my group working for the FBI, so I gave them a little bit more. Of course, you know, everybody's having fun. That's the most important part. So let's talk about the character classes. They have the archetypes that are involved in spy movies, okay? Number 1, I like the fact it's a 1-page description of the guy, and obviously your imagination fills in the blank. Confiscator is your thief class, which makes sense if you're going to play D&D, if you compare this thing, right? The Eliminator would be your fighter class, does all the things a normal fighter, uses all the different weapons. And of course, the combat machine, when he gets down to things that are 1-hit dice or fewer, you can make multiple attacks based on how many levels you are. That's kind of cool. That's typical of what you have for a fighter class. Infiltrator will be your charmer. Aristocrat, if you are playing White Star, they're the ones that are going to use your charisma to kind of persuade people and charm people, essentially, which is kind of fun. My son loves to play this class because he likes just to try to fool everybody and try to get by them, which is totally cool. And then you have the investigator class. Now this is a cool class. This is the one my daughter Ross picked. The reason why she picked is this is like your Fox Mulder, right? So they're the ones that are going to do investigation, going to figure things out. They use wisdom is their main thing, and also like intelligence. So she banks on these two things based on what she has and what she's trying to figure out. You would add those different bonuses for that. Okay, so that's kind of a fun thing. Although they all get to use guns if they had to come down to fighting. And it has this interesting class called the Transporter. It's actually an important class because you got to drive to everywhere you're going to go, and that's the person that drives and tries to get through all the different various stops. If it's a real true covert operation, you want them, every time they have to stop to do anything, they have to kind of go their way through with trying to act like something else to keep everything under the radar, right? Totally fun. So that's it. That's all your classes. So then it gets kind of expansive on the list of different things you can have. You have your typical weapons, everything from revolvers, rocket launchers, explosives of any type you want, handheld weapons, pepper spray, stun things. Talks about your armor you can have. And what's cool is he does give a description of all these things down here, and he goes through, different kits you can have. This is really thought out. Bill Logan did a fantastic job putting all this together, right? Like I say, sky's a limit on this stuff, and you can figure out what you want to do. He talks about things you could upgrade your weapons. These are weapon upgrades, right? So you can tell, I'm going to put this on here. This, I mean, it's just fun. It depends on what direction you want to take this game, like how much you want to put into these kind of things, right? And talks about different heavy weapons you can mount on vehicles and such. Talks about different types of armor, and obviously the vehicles and the transporter will be more interested in that. So ejection seats, identity change plates, and all these different things are really kind of what you want to do, right? Now, here's the cool thing about gadgets. Now they have gadgets. You can purchase these things. And what it is that the more zany it is, the less reliable it's going to be. So they have 3 different tiers. An existing gadget, and you can pick this thing. It already exists in the real world, but you wanted it. It's not on the list. So every time you go to use it, you have to roll above a 2 to make sure it's functional. So you have a 66% chance of it working, all right? If you have a plausible gadget, let's say it's something that, oh my God, it does something. I don't think they really made that yet. It's like one of those questions. Then maybe it's there, maybe it's not in the real world. Then you have to roll. It's 50-50 chance of working, and it gets more expensive as it goes up, right? The improbable gadget. Let's say you light a cigarette and it shoots a dart that's actually a little small baby atomic warhead that can blow up a car. What? Okay, well, it's an impossible gadget. It costs a ton of money. You decide what it's going to cost, and then the ideal of it working, it's like super science. That would be like a 5 and above. So above a 5. So that's right. It's got like a 1/6 chance or something like that. A 5 or a 6. So it's a 33% chance it's going to function, right? Which makes sense. I mean, it's just weird. It's fun science. So now looking at this, they give you a nice example of what's going on there. Now, then it talks about the game master, which is the administrator, right? So it's admin. That's what you're called, or chronicler, or whatever you want to call yourself, right, for doing this thing. And you decide what the missions are, where you're going to take them, what are they going to do, and time, objectives, movement. These are all cool things. And then you have a language bank. So every point above 10, you know a foreign language. So you roll on the chart, figure out what all the other ones they know. And sky's a limit on doing something like this. You can have just so much fun with this, okay? It talks about armor class, what makes these things different. Obviously, there's ascending armor class and descending armor class. I just use ascending. It's so much easier for people to understand. It talks about the order. This is the old-fashioned. I still use it. I like it. 2 people roll d6. The higher number goes first, and then I re-roll every round. So sometimes you can be really lucky and get 2 strikes in before the other person does. So you hit first, all right? Then they get to go, just the way it goes. Suppose they hit you first, then you roll, then you go, and then you roll, and then you get to go again. So you get to hit them twice. Sometimes you can take them out before they have a chance. And they say if both rolls are at the same time, both shots are done at the same time. I mean, you can do your own versions of this, but it's pretty straightforward. I just break everybody up according to their stats or dexterity stat, or I just go around the table, which makes it really easy when you're doing with kids. We go in this circle, so I think that's just makes it easier for play, right? And then it just talks about your typical how to do things: ranged attacks, untrained attacks, stunned attacks, explosions, rate of fire. So If you have a question, there's some answer in here that you can dig out, all right, with game master discretion of how you'd like to do it, right? Anyways, so it talks about the concept of investigation. It gives you an example in case you need to have one. I think people would probably know how to do this pretty easily. And then it dissects enemy organizations, right? Talks about the number of master villains and locations for all these things. And you can come up with your own ideas, right? But this is kind of cool that at least you put this stuff on the table so you can roll and kind of figure out, if you're stuck for an idea, roll a couple times, you come up with something that's enough to get you going in a direction, you can flesh the whole thing out. One thing I do like is the fact that obviously anywhere you want to, and this is what makes it fun. Obviously, you got to move somewhere, so you need a transporter. It could be someone that organizes flight tickets, they walk people through gates and do a bunch of different stuff. Another thing is it gives different agendas for the organization. Well, why are they doing what they're doing? So if you're struggling for ideas, this is a great thing for figuring that out. And this is cool. It describes the master villain because you have to have some bad guys like Curse of Strahd. You have to have the one bad guy that you're trying to beat down, take care of, right? Of course, once you get rid of him, somebody else pops up. But it's cool. It talks about like, what kind are they and different things about them so you can flesh out the character so you have something that people can grab onto. And talks about their motivation. You roll a d20, their superiority, or their basically bigotry is their motivating factor. And it even comes down, it's like cool, they got a really cool list here. And we haven't used this yet, but we're going to. It talks about number of agents and stuff like that. I'm kind of moving through this pretty quickly. It talks about villain quirks, which I thought was kind of funny. It's a D100. Like, these quirks, you can pick 3 off of this list. You just roll impulsive man of action, or you can decide, oh my God, he lives in a castle. This is kind of fun because you can flesh out your character. This could be what propels the story from the back all the way to the front. So it's fun. Okay, so like I said, it's a fun modern day spy game that you can pretty much put in anything. Like I'm using it more like an X-Files kind of thing because it fits for what we're doing and what the kids are into. So once again, it's an excellent, excellent book for putting something together depending on your interest level. I'm going to kind of scroll through. Obviously, this goes lots into the mission. They give a lot for the admin to work with. Thank God for that. Excellent job for getting people to even have File X, FBI, closing case or possible supernatural. So they can't call it X-File, but they call it File X. I love it, right? So this is, government run by aliens. That's kind of the direction we're taking ours. Then it talks about different things with security systems and, all these. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It makes it fun. So at the end, they have a list of adversaries, right? And they rank them in hierarchies. And this makes it easy for you to say, okay, at this level, they're running into these kind of guys with this kind of stuff. So they give you stats on anything the group might run into. For example, right, you have a common street thug, and then these are, I call independents. Enforcer, cat burglar, a hitman. These are all independent guys. And now you have your guards. Now, guards are anybody that's working for some corporation that's not like a government, right? So it starts from the lowest end, like a common guard, and it gives you their armor class and their hit points. And it tells you how far will they get invested before they kind of give up or they phone it in, right? Then you have corporate security, and at the time you have extreme security, depending on what people are going up against, which is sort of funny, right? Then you have your police. You're a common policeman, your detective and sheriff, and at the top you'll have your SWAT team. So I really love the fact that they rank these things like this and put them all in groups. It makes it much easier for you're creating a subject to have all this stuff at your fingertips, right? It tells you what they can have as far as what the attacks would they have, how many hit dice they have for doing what they're doing, and it gives you enough of a bite down here to figure out how would you make this a more real character. And then you have your rebels, your rebel rouser, right? And your insurgents, and finally your revolutionary. And some of them get kind of beefy and kind of hard to kill, right? So once again, you gotta make it interesting, or there's no sense of doing it, right? You have to sense of accomplishment. Then you have soldiers, typical experience, and the final things, special forces. And then you have your spy group, right? All the way up to the master spy. Right? And then you got fighters, and then you have your monsters. Of course, they have a really cool group just based on aliens. You have the Greys. I think it's called the Alpha Draconians, which are like your overlords of the Greys. I think Assyrians. and Anuki is these guys down here from Nibiru, which is sort of fun. So if you're doing a X-Files sci-fi thing, this obviously they gave you enough that you don't have to come up with your own characters. You got them right here, right? So lots of fun if you're going to do this. Now I'll show you in the next video kind of how I put this in my game. Obviously we forgot about the Nordics. They're another group, and some animals typically like guard dogs, cats, lizards, even monkeys and sharks, things you may run into depending on what kind of spy adventure you're doing, which makes it sort of fun. Snakes, totally fun. And then they can go into different areas of training. All right, so it's enough that you could really flesh this out and make an awesome campaign if your people are into it. Like I said, this seems like we've been toying around my family for quite some time. We tried D&D, like a white box version, and we did Swords and Wizardry. I don't know if the kids really, they were really young, and Mason got into it. The other two were kind of off and on with it. But we played this. Oh my God, can we play this again? We played it 2 nights in a row for, I think, about a total of 5 hours. And they wanted to play again. And can't play during school night. We get too into it. So we'll probably do it on the weekend. But it was funny. You have to find the game that kind of works for your crew. And they really, really, all of a sudden, this was so much fun. They had so much fun with this. So check out my next video, okay? And like I said, the link for my website is down in the description. And like I said, go to DriveThruRPG and get it. And I think it's pay what you will. So I think it's worth an investment. You should kick money back to Bill Logan for doing a nice job. And once again, it's like, it's nice to bridge out and do different things. It keeps you getting from DM burnout. Now, I know like my 2 go-to games is obviously Swords of Wizardry, and I got White Star. I do White Box. I get in there with Fantastic Medieval Adventure Game. Now I'm putting this one in rotation. So it keeps it, the creative juices get you at different things. And my next video, I'll show you how you can really, really make this special for your group. Okay? With that, I want you to have a fantastic day. All right. Bye-bye.